Making an effort to go above and beyond at every customer touchpoint is a huge differentiator in any industry, and it's the reason we're all here today. So we're going to stay on the topic of customer experience with our next wonderful speaker. Colin Campbell is the Director of Marketing at Sales Hacker, the largest community for B2B sales professionals. Before joining the Sales Hacker team, Colin spent 6 years at Brafton, North America's leading content marketing agency, directing marketing strategies for Mr. Coffee, Iron Mountain, and hundreds of other brands. Colin is here today to discuss what he calls Popsicle moments and the customer-centric strategies his team employs at Sales Hacker to create magic at every stage of the funnel. And now, please give a warm welcome to Sales Hacker Director of Marketing, Colin Campbell.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to share with you all something that I've been obsessed with for a few years now, Popsicle moments. And I think it actually is a great fit because like we just heard, I was in account management for a long time and we were talking about customer success. A lot of what I'm bringing to the marketing and sales like acquisition mode is what I learned from my position in a upsell and retention position at that agency. So we're talking about Popsicle moments, how you can create little moments of joy and inject them into the customer journey. And all kinds of magical things happen here. We're going to get a little creative. We're going to get into like an 8th grade arts and crafts mode a little bit. So I want you to prepare for that. The headspace I want you to be in is just to quickly ask yourself how much you like your job. As a seller or as a marketer or a customer success person, I know I love mine as a marketer. But now ask yourself, how good does it feel to be marketed to or to be sold to? I think it's not always as nice as we wish it was. And we've gotten to a place where I think we've almost convinced ourselves that that's okay. I don't believe that's okay. I think we've flipped it. And we only deliver great service after somebody has signed a contract, or maybe after they look like a great opportunity. And what I want to do is deliver great service so that they become a great opportunity. So we're going to talk about how to do that. There's a process I'll share with you. I promise this isn't all foo-foo. There's actual ROI and metrics tied to this. I have examples, and we're going to get into it. But I'm going to start with a story. This is the Magic Castle Hotel in Los Angeles. As you can see, it's very yellow. There's a nice little pool, but the pool area is kind of small. You can see the rooms. They have balconies, which is nice, but maybe there's not that much privacy. And I can tell you, from having seen pictures of the inside of the rooms, they're not decorated amazingly well. They kind of just look like any other hotel room. So nothing special, right? But the Magic Castle Hotel is ranked number 6 out of 378 other hotels in the Los Angeles area, which is crazy because they're in competition with like the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton, Sheraton, Marriott, Hilton, all of these hotel chains that are huge and have so much money compared to this little like privately owned hotel, the Magic Castle Hotel. So how do they do it? And my first thought, by the way, was price, like maybe they're really cheap, but it turns out that there are a lot of pretty good, not too expensive hotels in the area. So how are they number 6? What's the secret? Popsicle hotline. Popsicle hotline. If you're by the pool, there's a big red phone and you can pick it up and it rings and you tell the person on the other side what flavor popsicle you want and they bring it to you on a platter and it's free and you can have as many as you want. And how much does a popsicle cost? Like 25 cents, right? I don't know. I haven't had a popsicle in a while, but they're using popsicles. And in trade, they're getting number 6 spot on TripAdvisor. And if you go look at the reviews, you'll see people reference the popsicles. This is the reason why they have that ranking. So what's the ROI on that, huh? 25 cents for a number 6 ranking on TripAdvisor. And you know what most of us would have done? Ooh, popsicles at the pool. They only cost $0.25. We could sell them for $1. At least that's what I would have done. I don't want to put that on you. You're probably better than me. But they're not doing that. They made an investment in the popsicle and it brought them a return because it created a moment. And actually, the truth is they're not investing in the popsicle. They're investing in a way of thinking, of a thought process that goes into making a decision that allows them to give away free popsicles, unlimited free popsicles. They invested in a process. So that's what we're going to learn today, the process. By the way, that story is not my own. It came from a book called The Power of Moments. Maybe you've read it. If you haven't, I recommend it. it's full of all kinds of great stories just like that. I don't make money when you buy it. And I found it really, really inspirational. It's what started me on this journey of being obsessed with creating little magic moments. But I have to say, after reading the book, I found it kind of hard to think about like how I could apply those lessons to my own business. And just so you have context, Sales Hacker, our business model is we're a community for all B2B sales pros. The way we survive and make money is that we have an audience of sales pros, and then we have people that want to sell stuff to sales pros, and there are sponsorship opportunities for them, like our podcast and our twice weekly webinars. Okay, so we need both. We have to attract both of those people. So I was thinking, as director of marketing, how can I use it to attract more of our sales professionals audience? Like we get 250,000 sessions or visits to the site a month now. What kind of little moments can I create to grow that? So I started just trying stuff. I didn't know where to start. I was like a monkey throwing dice. I knew what direction I wanted to throw them in. I knew I wanted what I wanted them to land on. But it was all just trial and error. And by the way, with this framework I'm going to give you, you might feel like a monkey throwing dice sometimes. And I think that's actually good, because that means you're taking risks and you're doing something innovative. If you know it's going to work when you start doing it, then like so do your competitors, and you're not innovating, you're not going to create a special thing, a special moment. So we were guessing and doing a bunch of stuff, all kinds of activities and changing things, and it was working. We saw our active users month over month shoot up. So it was really fulfilling to kind of do all this stuff that felt good, like we felt like we were delivering special moments, and watch an outcome happen. But I have to be honest, even at this point, we didn't quite know which activities, which things we were testing led to which parts of the graph that went really steeply up and which went down a little bit. Until my friend Scott Barker, some of you may know Scott Barker, he hosts a lot of our webinars and a podcast. He mentioned to me, hey, you know what? I'm getting a lot of thank yous now. The way we do webinars now, I'm getting a lot of thank yous after the webinars. And I said, you know what? Me too. We didn't used to do that. And our head of content, Catherine Aragon, sends a newsletter out on Tuesdays. And she said, you know what? People are even replying to the newsletter and saying, hey, thanks, Catherine, for this newsletter. You know, it helped me do X, Y, Z. Somebody even said, Sales Hacker is my sales lifeline, which like I couldn't have written a better tagline, and is more than I think we ever hoped that we could be. So we noticed that a key metric was not the outcome. It was not the active user growth that we wanted. The key metric was thank yous. Okay. So growth is not the goal. Growth is not the goal. Just like CSM should not be focused on retention, like we heard from Dave, growth is not the goal. The goal is to create a little moment of joy. Go for the thank you. And when you do that, growth happens. Growth is the outcome, not the goal. And you have to do that by getting to the moment. You can't go from goal to growth. There's that moment you have to create in between. What's the joy? So we're going to talk about what defines a Popsicle moment, what it is not, and then I'll tell you how you can kind of dig them out of your customer journey and emphasize them. So what is a Popsicle moment? It has to be different than expected, right? So this is a picture of a dish that I got at a restaurant near me in Worcester, Massachusetts called Dead Horse Hill. And instead of serving spaghetti with tomato sauce, they serve spaghetti with blueberry sauce, which is pretty insane. And it was good. It wasn't like the best spaghetti I've ever had, but you can be damn sure I tell almost everybody about the blueberry spaghetti sauce because it's so different. So you just got to be different. Like it would have been really hard for them to impress me with tomato sauce spaghetti, right? Because everybody can make pretty good tomato sauce spaghetti. So be different. Can't be better if you're not different. Your moment also really has to be relevant to your customer and to you. Like you'll notice the Magic Castle Hotel does not just go around giving out like free tax advice to their guests, because that's like the opposite of vacation. They give out popsicles because it's hot in LA and you want to cool off by the pool. Popsicle. Or you're on vacation and you don't care about your calorie count and you want a snack. Popsicle. Right? Or you just kind of want to relax and do nothing. It fits with the scenario. Okay, a Popsicle moment also has to be valuable in some way. I hope people remember this, but this is Clippy. he was a Microsoft quote unquote assistant that popped up in Microsoft Word, and he would tell you stuff like, looks like you're trying to create a table, or maybe you're, like, no, it looks like you're trying to create a cover letter. He was so unhelpful and everybody hated him. But, like on the face of it, he was different. He wasn't what people expected, and he was relevant. He was giving tips. He just wasn't valuable. He was interruptive and like super annoying and often wrong. And by the way, like when you start testing things, like we were trying to create moments, we found all kinds of places where we had things like Clippies, like ideas that were just a dog and just not good, not valuable. But it's worth trying. Just like if you find something as bad as Clippy, don't let it hang around as long as Microsoft did, because that was horrible. It have to be valuable. And then this is the most important one, and I think also the hardest to know if you're getting it right. You have to make the moment feel like something. We get so left-brained in business, and we think we have to have logic drive everything, and there has to be reasons and numbers for everything. But like, people are people. And you'll hear people say that people buy because of value. And I think that's true, but I think people listen and trust you because of the way that they feel. And then they remember you because of the way that they feel, and they stay with you because of value, yeah, but also because of the way that you make them feel. So you want your moment to be tied to some kind of emotion. And this is something that'll be totally transparent that I'm still working on at Sales Hacker. A popsicle moment, just to clarify, is not doing better at something that's already an existing expectation. For the hotel, they did not just try to get cleaner rooms or more comfortable beds. Like that is an expectation. A hotel needs to have that. That's that red line, by the way, down there. If you do a really bad job on your expectations, customers will hate you. If you do a really good job on the expectations, they won't hate you, but they might not love you. It's not enough to do it okay. Like, when was the last time you loved your cell phone company for just having service? It's not a thing that happens. They'd have to go above and beyond. And so like what a cell phone company does, at least Verizon for me, they work along the satisfiers line, that yellow line, where they give you rewards for staying a customer. And it's a linear input, linear output. They give me a reward, I stay. I stay, they give me a reward, and it stacks up. Those can work, but you're still in the same playing field as all of your competitors, and you're still paying kind of a linear amount for that, what you get out of it. The delighters, that green line, that's where you want to play. The cool thing about delighters is you can execute on it kind of badly, but just because it's so unexpected and like outside the realm of expectation and nice, it can still make your customer or your prospect more excited to do business with you. And then if you get really good at executing on it, it becomes like a massive brand differentiator where they remember you and they rave about you and they love you forever and ever. So you can't just do better at existing expectations. You also cannot only give the popsicle moment when you get what you want. This is not an incentive or a trade. So like ebooks don't count. Free consultation, free demo, that stuff doesn't count. Because people know now that to get the thing, they have to give something, like their email address or their privacy or their time. That's not fair. It's not nice. You also can't use it as an incentive. Like, if you do X for me, I'll give you a popsicle moment. Because if they know it's coming, then they're doing the behavior that you want for the wrong reason. You have to give it like a gift, like you would give a birthday gift to a friend. If it's their birthday, you don't expect a gift in return, right? That would be bad. So treat your prospects like every day is their birthday. Here's how to create them, okay? First of all, just write on Post-it notes. Post-it notes are good because you're going to want them later. List 20 moments that you have with your customer. And these, I mean moments, like just a minute or two at a time. So it can't be like a phase. It can't be like onboarding or discovery. Those aren't moments. A moment might be like the first 2 minutes of your discovery call, or the instant they open the first cold email that you send, or that 1 minute after they sign the contract. Right? Little moments. So for us, just a couple examples for what we used. We looked at like, do they attend a webinar? Like they get in first few minutes of a webinar for the first time, or they unsubscribe from the newsletter, or maybe they publish something on Sales Hacker for the first time. So they kind of like become a contributor. Or they follow us on social media or something like that, like a really short moment in time. List 20 of them out. You probably, by the way, you should do this with friends or colleagues, and you have more than 20 moments, I bet. But just pick 20 that feel like there could be, like they're an impactful or a key moment in the customer journey that, or the part of the customer journey that you want to focus on. Then you're going to graph them, and this is why you wanted sticky notes. So on the y-axis, you have expectation. Like what is, by the way, I know this is very subjective, and this is why I said this is like 8th grade arts and crafts time. This is meant to get us thinking creatively and just get a feel for like, what are the expectation levels through a customer journey, and where are my opportunities to create a delta between that expectation level and what we actually do. So you graph on expectation level on the y-axis. Very, very low would be like they expect something bad, or very, very little, like they expect nothing. And high expectation level is like the moment they sign the contract, that's like peak excitement, right? You've worked them up to that point where they're willing to give you money for your service. That's probably the highest their expectations will ever be. And then graph it over time too. And when you graph it over time, you'll find that maybe your focus lies, when you were brainstorming all your moments, maybe your focus accidentally lies very, very close to the beginning of the journey. Or maybe you lack moments in the middle of the journey, and you could kind of create some new moments. So this exercise can have other unintended effects and positive benefits, especially again, when you do it with a group, you'll find that people disagree about what constitutes a moment. And sometimes people disagree about what the level of expectation is that's associated with that moment. So good exercise for groups. Just a couple examples here to kind of like give you, a grounding. At the start there on the left, you'll see somebody like has a problem, maybe like they need to hire somebody. They type their question into Google and they find a Sales Hacker article for the first time. No expectation, flat. It's the first time they've heard of us. They're hoping we solve their problem, but they don't expect us to, really. On the lower right, very, very low expectation moment in time. At the end of their journey with us, they're unsubscribing, okay? And then in the upper right, at the end of their journey as a reader, and very high expectation moment, they're publishing an article with Sales Hacker for the first time. And by the way, that just starts a new journey. That's like, so I put a time box on that. Those are the 3 we picked. We picked when they subscribe to the newsletter, okay? When they attend their first webinar with us, and then when they unsubscribe. And by the way, you really only want to pick 3. At least that's what we did, because it felt like something we could actually act on. If you try to go and change the whole customer journey all at one time and like boil the ocean, you're gonna have a bad time. Pick a few where it feels like you have the ability to create a delta between the expectation and what you can actually do, and try to pick moments that you feel are actually either important or very, very easy to act on. Here's why we chose those. When someone subscribes to the newsletter, like I said, their expectation is very high. But also think back to the newsletters you've subscribed to. Most of the time what happens is you get a really simple welcome email, but probably not. You probably just kind of get added to the next newsletter. So we felt like that was an easy format to improve on. There was a chance for something extra there. The newsletter that Sales Hacker has is also very core to our success. Email is the way that we communicate with the community most often. So it was a good chance for a very relevant moment. As our webinars, by the way, it's the time when like we kind of all get together and have a discussion. So when someone attends their first Sales Hacker webinar, or really any webinar, we really want that to be a special moment. Expectations are also pretty high when you're attending a webinar for the first time. You see, oh, this is going to solve all my problems. I'm going to go join and I'm going to learn how to do something. And then like most of the time, webinars aren't that great. So even though expectations are high, I think people expect a normal webinar, and we try to go above and beyond. We felt like we're good enough at that we could create a delta there. And then when people unsubscribe, the expectation is like non-existent. So it's just a very, very easy opportunity to change the norm. And it felt like a low lift for us. We don't expect a ton of impact from that, but because it's so low lift, we're fine doing it. Okay, you've mapped 20 moments on expectation versus time. You've chosen 3 that you want to start with. You can always go back and choose different ones, but for these 3, your next step is to brainstorm all of the crazy stuff you could do to create a moment. And this is when you want to refer back to those 4 rules. It has to be different, it has to be valuable, it has to be relevant, and it has to create a feeling. So start brainstorming crazy stuff you can do. Like, do you want to buy them a car? Send them on vacation? Like, babysit, dog sit for them over the weekend while they go on your vacation. Get crazy and think outside the box. And then when you run out of ideas, take a breather and come back and put more ideas, because you'll find that finding the actions you actually can take and want to take and will make a difference takes some time here and some effort. I highlighted the things in yellow that we ended up doing. We may come back and do some different ones. And then you kind of have to stop, because this is the point where I found myself the first time around, starting to think of ways that I could improve my outcome. Like, when they subscribe to the email, this is a really good chance for me to improve how engaged they are later on, or maybe I can increase my click-through rate. You also don't want to do like an ROI calculation in your head of, this is is this gonna be worth the effort? Because if you find yourself thinking about the outcome you're getting, you're skipping from goal to growth, and you've forgotten that, again, that middle step is creating a moment. So just try to get there first and then worry about the outcomes. You can always abandon or undo the change, this moment that you've made in the future if it's not worth it, but you have to see if you can create the moment first. It's also a good chance, like when you have all of the possibilities mapped out, to remind yourself that these are gifts, that they're given without an expectation of return because you love your customers, and that you have faith that if you deliver on these moments, the growth will follow. And then you test and repeat. I'm not going to throw like a testing framework at you. Everybody's got one. At Sales Hacker, we just keep a spreadsheet that like has a name of the test, when we ran it, what we expected, like a hypothesis, and the outcome. You do want to keep track, though. However you do it, keep track, because you have a long list of ideas that you want to test, and you'll want to go back and see what you've learned about previous tests so you don't repeat ideas or test the same hypothesis 2 times. So here are some examples. And this is where I think it gets real. Like when you saw that active users graph going up, it's not because we did something like super, super crazy. This is like, I don't know, what's the opposite of death by 1,000 cuts? Joy by 1,000 little moments. So we took the original newsletter welcome email that we had, which was a video of our founder and CEO, Max Altschuler, welcoming people and telling them how they could get good value out, and also a survey. The survey was for our use, and we just wanted to know who was signing up. We didn't do anything for the user with that information. So the thing we started doing was doing something for the user with that information. Like if you tell us that you're an SDR, the next thing you get is an email from us that's, here's all the best stuff. So you don't have to wait for it in the newsletter. You don't have to go searching for it. We know this is our best stuff just for SDRs since you signed up. This is a new one for us. I haven't been measuring thank yous on this for very long. We've gotten a couple, but time will tell if this is still, since it's automated, I think it's worth doing. But we'll find out if it's like actually creating a little moment. It may not. You'll find dogs too. Another example, and this is the really low lift one, when people unsubscribe from our newsletter, most of the time they just click the unsubscribe button, right? But not always. Sometimes people get kind of angry and they just reply back, stop emailing me, take me off your list, dang it. And when that happens, I kind of think to myself, if I was doing that, I think I would want a confirmation that I was heard. I think I would. And so I just started doing it manually. And turns out sometimes people don't reply and they just take the confirmation and run, which is fine. If you don't want to be in my email list, I'm not going to make you. But sometimes we do get like some positive input, like people tell us why they're unsubscribing, or they tell us that they just prefer LinkedIn, or maybe they tell us we're doing too many emails, which is also really, really great feedback. So it's been positive. And like, I want people, like Dave said earlier, I think offboarding is as important as onboarding. I don't want to create this idea that you're either with us and you love us, or you're not with us and you hate us. You know, either you're with us and you love us, or you're not with us, and that's fine. You can feel any way you want, but I hope you love us. You saw some of these thank yous earlier, but I'm going to tell you about the change that went behind the scenes to create the thank yous that were associated with webinars. And I think, by the way, this is the biggest thing that we did. Webinars are a huge, huge driver of growth for us. When we add people to our email list, it's usually because they register for a webinar. But we found that by doing the big webinars, stuff that everybody likes, like objection handling, cold calling, and cold emails, sales process overviews, we would get great registration, but the webinars always kind of felt like just a one-way communication. And I think it works for a virtual conference, but when I have a webinar where we're all a part of a community and we're doing it regularly, it started to feel a little weird knowing that there were people in every single webinar that weren't having conversations with each other, even though they were regulars. So we started picking more niche topics, like how to transform your sales operations team into a revenue operations team. There are not as many people that care about that as there are that care about objection handling. But the people that care about RevOps can't get that answer elsewhere. And they also care a lot about RevOps. So we were answering questions that had more pain associated with them. We also abandoned something that we were holding on to, which was a Q&A report. We run webinars in Zoom, and there's two ways you can ask questions. You can do it in the Q&A section. And on our end, we could export that and have a list later and look back at it and learn stuff. But users cannot see each other's questions. There's also the chat feature, and the chat feature is open and everybody can see it and use it, and you can see each other's questions and just talk to each other as you're in the webinar. We can't export that. So it was a loss for us to give that up, but we did move over to the chat, and just having the chat going made there a whole lot more participation happened. Like people were talking to each other and connecting. And sometimes they were having conversations that were not related at all to the topic of the webinar. But when we relinquished control, let the webinars be smaller, and gave ourselves permission to take less information away from the webinars in terms of reporting, engagement went up and actually growth followed. Okay, if you want to get really crazy here, and we are just starting to play with this, you can also make a list about of the key moments where you are not in your customer's journey, because your customer's journey doesn't just happen when they're interacting with your marketing, sales, or customer service teams. Your customer's journey is all about them. And so they may have moments that are relevant to you, but you're not there. And you can make a list and try to play with some of those too. So here are ours. We thought about salespeople. So like, well, maybe they get a raise or a promotion, or they crush their quota, or maybe they get a new job. Maybe they get discouraged at the end of a quarter, or they just feel stressed out at the end of a quarter. Maybe they feel a little bit like they're alone in their organization, like they're the only sales rep, or they're the only forward-thinking sales rep. They don't have anybody they can talk to. So these are moments in the journey of a sales professional where we feel like if only we were there, we could help. And logistically, it's hard to get there. But when you think creatively and you kind of go through the framework, you can come up with some stuff. Now, the stuff you come up with is going to end up being like swing for the fence type stuff. You're not going to be hitting singles here. You're either going to knock it out of the park every now and then, or you're going to have some big failures. So this is a big bet that we made. We started a new video series. We take real recordings of real sales demos, seller and a buyer, and we have Scott Barker, my buddy, and his buddy Dave sit down and assess them politely and professionally. We find the things that the rep did well and the things that the rep could use work on. The reason that we did this is because, you know, from my days of being a salesperson and account management at the agency, I felt a little limited by what I could learn from my peers. I shadowed all kinds of calls and demos, but I always kind of wondered how other agencies did it. And I always felt like I didn't really understand what it was like to be on the other side, to be a buyer, just because I was always watching the demo from, you know, one perspective. We've started getting thank yous on this, my favorite metric. We're getting some thank yous. Now it's not taking off, and it's also an expensive thing to do. So this is an example where you may be able to create a little moment. And if it's a good moment, that's cool, but it has to be worth it for you. You don't get to decide if it's worth it until after you've created the moment, though. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So I've shared kind of what we're learning and the process that we've used and reverse engineered after reading that amazing book, The Power of Moments. I want to send out you on this journey too. So I hope you all kind of take this with you and think about the moments in your customer's life cycle, and think about your customer's life cycle as longer than their time with you, and more complex than their time with you too. And if you do that, if you can create the moments, the growth follows. So if you want to take away one thing, remember, growth is not the goal. Growth is the outcome when you create really, really powerful moments for your users. My last question for you is, please, can you talk to me? I work from home, as you can see. Sometimes I get lonely, and I love to talk. So if you're going to connect with me, just make sure you actually connect. Don't just click the button. Have a conversation with me. Let me know why you're connecting, and maybe I can help you.
Wonderful, Colin. Thank you so much for those insights. I know a lot of us are feeling really inspired in the audience. I do have a few questions if you'd be willing to field those. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Before we dive in, will you be sharing your slides with folks attending today?
Heck yeah, everybody can have them.
Awesome. Okay, great. Where can we look for those?
You know what? I'll put them up on my LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to following up on that. And then I have a couple other questions just from our live QA. Let's see here. This is from Derek. He says, I sell warehouse storage solutions. How can I make my prospects feel something when the product itself just fills a need or might even be a little bit boring?
Yeah, so this is like the Verizon example I gave, right? Like you feel like what you sell is a base expectation. It's not something that's a want or something very special. The trick to think about is that you still are serving a person, and there is a pain associated with being a person. Being a person's hard, guys. It's not about like running a business is hard. Being a person is hard, and so the people that you sell to. I mean, I can't really have a conversation with you, but think about the person you sell to. That person probably also has other parts of their job that they do like care more about or get more emotional or personally involved with. You can center your business around your customers' pains and worries, not just around your solution. One example, like if I was going to go crazy off the wall and do like a Verizon example, instead of just selling cell phone service, they could say, help people talk to loved ones around the holidays somehow, or like help diffuse political tension around the Thanksgiving table, because they're all about communication and helping people feel close when they're apart. So make it about the person, not about the solution and the need.
Awesome advice. All right, we've got just a few more. This one comes from Colin, from Sam for Colin in the live chat. He says, how do you balance pursuing Popsicle moments versus the rubber meets the road marketing stuff that we all have to do?
Oh, thanks for that question, Sam. Yeah. I spend probably 95% of my time on rubber meets the road marketing stuff. And the only reason I've been able to kind of like be obsessed with the Popsicle moments is because we do a good job on the rubber meets the road marketing stuff. So you have to kind of earn the right to think this way in your organization and to try new stuff. And what you'll find is that if you do have some successes with the Popsicle moments, it actually becomes the rubber meets the road marketing stuff. Like now I'm in a position where I can go to my leadership team and say, look, we have more success when we think about creating moments. And when we go for a thank you, then we have success when I go for registrations on a webinar. So it's, hopefully you can carve out like 5% of your time and start small.
Great practical advice. Thank you. Do you make an effort to create Popsicle moments equally for every prospect, or do you try for bigger, more appealing Popsicle moments for customers or prospects that are more valuable to you? How would you make this kind of a decision?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in my case, um, in my case, I'm appealing to a really, really broad audience, like every B2B sales professional. So for my use case, all of my Popsicle moments have to be ready to scale. Like one of my crazy ideas was every time somebody subscribes to Sales Hacker, I could connect with them on LinkedIn, thank them for subscribing, and like ask them what they're working on. That doesn't work for me. Um, so like when I think that the point of prioritization comes when you list out all of the crazy things that you could do for that customer. Because you'll start to see like there are some things that you could do for everybody that scale well, and there are also things that you'll look at your list and go, I really want to do that, but I only want to do it for 5. And I think you kind of just have to decide for yourself. But if you go through the process, you'll find a natural point to make the decision where it feels easy to make that decision and makes sense.
Awesome. Well, Colin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time and all of your insights today. We really appreciate you being part of Boundless 2020. Any final thoughts before we wrap up for now?
Yeah, it was such a joy. Thanks for having me, everybody. My final thought is just love your customers.
We'll keep it as simple as that. Thank you so much, Colin.